Okay, welcome back to another episode of Third and 23. I'm your host, Alex, here to talk again about the college football, our past college football weekend, give my recap of what happened, how my picks and predictions went, how everything went against the spread, and so forth. This was a tough, I'll be the first to say, man, this was a tough week. This was a tough week, uh, betting wise. Got some whiffs, got some games that I kind of really didn't want to do, but I wanted to give you guys some kind of, uh, you know, insight into which way I was leaning, and what I was thinking, and so on. But anyway, so on to recapping the week. So first, starting off with LSU Mississippi State. So this was a game that was the spread was 9.5. And I told you guys that I didn't want to do the 9.5 because I didn't want to lay 9.5 on the road. I was confident that LSU was going to win this game. But 9.5 on the road, I said it last week. I'm more confident that LSU will cover than they won't. But I just didn't feel that confident in letting that 9.5 go. I should have. Sometimes you don't want to pull the trigger. So I told you guys I'm not going to do that game against the spread, which I didn't. And but obviously, I took LSU straight up. There was no shot that I thought LSU was going to lose this game. So we'll go ahead and update our overall to 11-6. But I just didn't feel confident in doing the spread. They ended up winning 41-14. They took off on these guys. Had over 500 yards offense. Jaden Daniels, and I said it. Mississippi State had an issue with Jaden Delora the week before with his mobility. Jaden Daniels is better than him. So I thought, well, Jaden Daniels is going to have a big game, both running and throwing. He had a big game. He went up for 360. He ran for 2 touchdowns. Malik Neighbors went over 200 yards receiving. Big game. And like I told you guys, I said, I'm not a Will Rogers guy, man. I'm not saying, it's nothing personal. But I've never seen good play out of Will Rogers where I can say that's Will Rogers, not the system he's playing in stat padding, right? Because that's what I used to always see. I see Will Rogers stat padding based off of that system. These guys, LSU secondary is the weak link, and these guys couldn't even get downfield on them. They didn't hit them off for anything. Will Rogers didn't even have, I think he had 11 for 28. He didn't go over, he barely had over 100 yards. He barely had over 100 yards passing. So, LSU was in complete control of this game, start to finish, and it's kind of picking up where they left off last year. Remember, LSU lost to opener Florida State, and then they started to take off. So let's see if that's what's happening again. K-State, Missouri. This one, I didn't want to give a lock of the week last week, but I said I'm going to give one, so I made it. Kansas State laying the 3.5. They ended up losing this game off of a 61-yard field goal, lost by 3 to Missouri. Missouri won 30-27. And this was a game where I actually had a chance to cover that. This was a game that was back and forth. I thought it would be a back-and-forth game, but I was thinking that Kansas State might be able to win this by 4, basically a touchdown or so. And that's what was happening. It was a back-and-forth game. Kansas State had their chances. But what was weird to me is something you don't see is Kansas State had some really questionable coaching going on. So middle of the fourth quarter, they're up by 4, right? And with the ball, they just had back-to-back run plays that gained them 9 yards total. So it's 3rd and 1. They're right around midfield, maybe in Missouri territory, right around midfield. Maybe you guys remember this play. They run the ball, they throw some garbage out in the flat that wasn't even open, and the play gets shut down. Instead of just running the ball again, you just picked up 9 in 2 plays. Do it again. It's just really weird. And then right on cue, they got to punt the ball. Missouri goes down, scores, takes the lead. Now they're up 3. Fast forward in the fourth quarter, Kansas State going right back down the field again. They're inside the 10-yard line. Didn't like the pass play from Will Howard to the end zone on a fade route. That's not his game. Will Howard is a good college quarterback, but, he's not a great college quarterback. He's not going to make that throw, so it wasn't there. They got a 3rd and goal from the 3-yard line. Okay, here we go. What do they have? They're calling an audible from the sideline. They get a delay a game. How do you get a delay on 3rd and goal from the 3? It's ridiculous stuff. They end up tying the game, and then Missouri ends up going downfield and hitting the walk-off 61-yard field goal. So this is definitely, it's a tight game like I thought it'd be. I'm on the wrong end of the pick, and I gotta. And you're wrong, man. You gotta do that across the board there. Wrong, you're wrong. You gotta eat it. All right. Penn State, Illinois. This was another game where I said I'm not gonna do this game because Penn State. It was a noon game. Penn State is always been the kind of team that kind of reads their press clippings a little bit, and sometimes they don't take everybody serious. And Brett Bielema was the type of coach who, he could have something up his sleeve, even though Illinois is really struggling this year. He could have something up his sleeve. So what happens? Penn State wins this game 30-14, but I think the spread, I want to say the spread was 15 in this game. And I'm sorry, it was 30-13. But what was interesting, you almost had a push because Illinois scores a late touchdown. It's 30-7. Illinois scores a late touchdown, goes for 2. They don't get it, and that's how Penn State ends up covering the spread. So if you did a spread, you won, but man, you were sweating it out, right? And kind of the game. I mean, I was confident Penn State was going to win this game, but it wasn't something I wanted to do against the spread. And while you would have won, man, it would have been it wouldn't have been too close for comfort, which I guess is kind of what I was doing in the K-State Missouri game. So sometimes I guess I do it. But in this one, Penn State, they didn't really have a great performance either. Drew Allar was 16 for 33. Bad game passing the ball. Running game wasn't really going off. Had a few too many penalties in this game. Just sloppy football offensively, but the defense forced 5 turnovers, so they were on their game. Illinois' quarterback, Lute Altmaier, he threw 4 picks in this one. He wasn't a good passing quarterback at Ole Miss when he was there, and he's not a good passing quarterback now. He's got legs, though. He can run the ball, but he can't pass the ball. And so, Illinois without a QB and with a defense that, even though they had a better performance this week, with a defense that hasn't been really playing as good as they, on paper, you would have thought they would have played this year. Illinois, man, they're having a tough go right now. But anyways, overall, though, I took Penn State, so we're go move us up there to 12-7. Next up is Virginia Tech Rutgers. Rutgers was a surprising 6-point favorite in this game, and it surprised me because it's Rutgers, man. When's Rutgers a 6-point favorite against a Power 5 team, right? But they were playing well this year. Defense was playing well this year. Their bread and butter was basically they could run the ball and they could stop the run. It's the reason why I took them against a Virginia Tech team that can't run the ball, has no running back. They couldn't run. Virginia Tech has some running success in this game because they started Kyron Jones at quarterback and he's a mobile quarterback, so there was some like scrambles and cute runs and stuff like that to get some yardage. But man, that stuff, man, unless you're like a legit weapon running the football like quarterback, man, that kind of stuff isn't going to win you that many games. So I was taking Rutgers straight up. I didn't want to lay the 6.5 because I wasn't ready to trust Rutgers because while they had played well, they also hadn't played anybody. But because of that, because of their ability to keep Virginia Tech one-dimensional, I thought that Rutgers would win this game. Rutgers ended up dominating, man. It was 35-16. And it was a game where Gavin Wimsatt, the quarterback for Rutgers, he didn't do anything. He had 46 yards passing. But Rutgers ran the ball, man. They ran the ball right down Virginia Tech's throat. We're hitting big running plays, gashing them. And, I said something. I said in week 1, as my week 1 recap, Virginia Tech had a real issue tackling. Or when I talked about Virginia Tech for the first time, they had a real issue tackling. And it's showing up. I mean, these guys have an issue tackling. They have an issue running the ball. And they have question marks at quarterback because I don't know if Grant Wells is going to be the starter when he comes back. Because remember, he was banged up with an ankle injury. So Virginia Tech has all kind of problems. Rutgers, their first actual test. If you really want to call it a test, Virginia Tech is like a borderline bowl team at best, right? But they took care of business as you should. So props to Rutgers and props to you if you laid the 6.5. That was a good bet for you. And if you guys listen to me, you guys just you did Rutgers just on the straight up money line. Good job on that too. But that'll move me up to 13-7. Next up, South Carolina Rutgers. Another game where I didn't want to do because Georgia. I'm South Carolina, Georgia. You know, Georgia was a huge favorite. I want to say they're like a 4-touchdown favorite in this game. I don't recall the spread at this point, but I didn't want to do the game because I don't like giving up that many points for two. And this is a thing with what you're seeing with Georgia now. In 3 games this year, they have started out slowly. Now against UT Martin and Ball State, they still ended up blowing them away because they're way better than those teams, right? And they're way better than South Carolina, right? But those aren't SEC. This one, they were down 14-3 at the half against South Carolina. 14-3 at the half. I mean, you know, they dominated the second half and won 24-14, so 21 zipped them in the second half. They ended up with 458 yards, you know, and you know, they look much better in the second half. But what's going Georgia, if they keep starting out slow like this, you know, somebody's going to get them. They're going to go against a better team. They're going to be sleepwalking to start the game, and they're going to be down, and it's going to be a team that they don't have enough to come back against. So that's something to look out for. Again, I didn't do the spread in this one, so this is just another overall dub. But South Carolina, you know, Spencer Rattler was looking, he was cooking. He was cooking early, and then he wasn't cooking at all. You know, as Spencer Rattler is, you know, basically what he does. He ended up 22 for 42, and I think he completed like his first 9 passes in this game or something like that. You know, so that tells you how things just fell off the map for him. They couldn't run the ball. South Carolina hasn't been able to run the ball all season. That's another team like Virginia Tech. They got no running back. That running game is not going to be fixed this year, I don't believe, unless there's a running back on the depth chart who hasn't played this yet, and the coaches aren't wise enough to put him in the game and see what he can do. So unless that's the case, South Carolina doesn't have a running back, and they're not going to be able to run the ball all year, and they're going to need to get into the portal or recruiting class to get a running back because that's a real issue for them. But anyway, so that's going to go ahead and move me up to a solid 14-7, right? And now we're gonna go to Tennessee, Florida. Now, if you guys remember, I told you guys this game was 6.5, and it ended up getting bet down. When I did the video, it was at 5. I was like, damn, man, there's a lot of action on Florida. And I said, man, I love Florida at 6.5. I don't know about at 5 though. I couldn't pull the trigger. I thought Tennessee was just a little better than Florida, a touchdown better than Florida. I win by 6 in this game, and it turns out, nope. Florida won this game 29-16. Some people will say that there was some real questionable officiating in this game on behalf of Florida. There was a few questionable calls where Tennessee did get kind of their drives kind of got robbed from them. I mean, we don't know what would have ended up happening. They could have thrown and picked the next play and stuff like that. But definitely their drives stalled on a couple drives, and there was some definitely referee involvement there. But Florida was able to run the ball, man. Florida ran the ball well. Trevor Etienne, he went to work. I think he had like 170 or something like that. What, he had 170 or 140? Yeah, I think he had like 140 in this game, something like that. Etienne went off though. He had a great game running the ball. Montrell Johnson didn't really, but overall, Florida, you know, a great job running the ball. There's something to note. So Graham Mertz was kind of dinking all game, you know, just short passes. They controlled the clock with these short passes in the running game, which is how they were going to have to win this game. So that's a good job with their game plan. But in this game, Graham Mertz, man, he got both of his hands banged up. I don't know if you guys saw the game, but one of his hands was bleeding really badly too. So that's something to note. Look, going down the line, and this Florida doesn't have another quarterback on the roster, no matter what anybody tells you. They got Max Brown and Jack Miller. Those guys are not Power 5. Hell, those guys aren't FBS quarterbacks, right? So they got to figure out how to keep Graham Mertz healthy for the entire season. He's getting banged around this season. Defense still played really sound football, but like I said, if you guys got better players or if you got the right play calling, you can still beat them. You're not seeing the big defensive lapses by Florida's team right now. But, Tennessee, they did beat them on some plays. Florida gave up 387 yards, 287 through the air. Joe Milton hit some plays. He hit some plays downfield. Brew McCoy was really having a good second half. But Joe Milton also has some inaccurate throws that are out of bounds when they were going towards the end zone and stuff like that. So, Tennessee had opportunities because they were kind of getting dominated in this game. It was like 26-7 at one point, and Tennessee had some opportunities to really get back into this game and pull off kind of like a comeback victory. And they just Joe Milton was a little off on some throws, and there was some referee involvement that was stopping some drives, and that allowed Florida to win the game. But again, this is a game that I didn't do against the spread. But I did get it wrong overall. Like I said, it was kind of a tough week for me. We're still looking pretty, though, on our overall record. Here we go. So, Pittsburgh at West Virginia. I told you guys it's a backyard brawl. I said I'm taking West Virginia. Pittsburgh has Phil Jerkovich at quarterback, another QB who I've never believed in, even though he was a top recruit. I named BC. I saw him play there. They're inaccurate with the ball. At Pittsburgh the week before against Cincinnati, inaccurate with the ball. This week against West Virginia, he was absolutely awful. 8 for 20, 80 yards. That's what he went. They couldn't really run it well. They had a lot of penalties, sloppy football, and West Virginia lost their starting quarterback in the first quarter. Garrett Green went down in the first quarter. They had to play with the backup. West Virginia's backup quarterback didn't catch his name, but yeah, he was not ready for football. Okay, he might not be made for this level. I don't like to judge guys off of just one game. Sometimes, and he's a redshirt freshman. Sometimes guys just aren't ready yet. They need that like they need to feel it first, right? They need to feel it first, and then they're better moving forward. C.J. Donaldson. I took West Virginia in this game. I told you guys because of C.J. Donaldson. I thought he'd be able to run the ball well against Pitt. He did. He ran over 100 yards. This is a game where West Virginia, I believe, was a 2.5-point favorite. I said I'm laying that. I had West Virginia winning this game, covering the spread, and they ended up winning 17-6. So if you guys did this game, congrats on that, and hope you guys made some money there with that pick. Because I certainly did. So we're going to go ahead and are against the spread record there too. And then finally, let's talk about our last game. Syracuse at Purdue. Purdue, it really let you down if you guys had Purdue. I had Purdue as well. Purdue was a 2.5-point underdog in this one. But I was taking Purdue straight up. They were at home. Their weakness was their secondary, and they're going against Garrett Shrader, who's never been known as a big passer. And he didn't really cook in this game passing the ball. I think he had like 180 yards or something like that. But the big deal is they Garrett Shrader, who's a really good runner, he ran for 195 and 4 touchdowns. I mean, my goodness, I don't know what the Purdue defensive coordinator was doing. I don't know if he looks at film and doesn't realize that that's Garrett Shrader's strength, and he's really good at that. He's a great runner of the football. He has been his entire career, and he ran wild, man. I mean, damn near 2 bills, 4 touchdowns, and Purdue, they had a good game out of Hudson Card passing the ball. I think he had over 300 yards passing in this game. He had 320 and he had a lot of big plays, but they couldn't run the ball at all. They couldn't run the ball a lick against Syracuse, and Syracuse is an undersized defense too, so that's not a good sign there for Maccabee and crew. And but the biggest reason they lost this game is because they just could not stop Schrader from running the ball. Syracuse was just chewing them up on the ground with those runs. And the final in this one, I believe, was 35-20, Syracuse. So I have to eat this one. Oh, and hey, man, what it is. Still sitting pretty though at 15-9, 7-3 against the spread. So, money's been made this season. If you guys have been following along, I know that week 3 was definitely not as good as my first 2 weeks. I'll definitely be the first to admit that, and I'm looking forward to getting it back. Um, Getting it back this coming week. We're getting into conference play, which is great because there's gonna be there's gonna be more games to do, more games to look at, more spreads to look at. We're done with like the Texas, New Mexico, and stuff like that. Stuff that I'm not gonna really talk about on here because those aren't games that I'm interested in on a gambling side or just in general as a football fan. But that pretty much wraps up this week. How I did, all the big games. This wasn't a week of big games, as you guys know. Um, and I'm looking forward to talking more and giving you guys my predictions this coming Friday, as I typically do on Fridays. Give you guys my predictions for the Saturday games. And if you like what you see, please like, follow, subscribe. I'll have my YouTube handle up in a few seconds, and you can feel free to leave comments on the YouTube channel for any other material you'd like to see or any games you might be interested in hearing about, hearing me discuss. But hope you guys enjoyed the vid. Hope you enjoyed the recap, and take care and have a great day.